Hey there, everyone. Steve Metrics here of No Debate Sports. Going again solo tonight. Our boy DJ Triggs is still under the weather, still fighting some stomach flu. But next week he'll be better. He'll be back here with us, and hope everything's going well with him. With that, big game last night had the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, and pretty interesting game. Pretty interesting stuff. Definitely a low scoring game. And really saw that the weather definitely played into this, but so did the scheme, and especially the scheme of the Chiefs. So the Chiefs are actually one of the better teams outside in the entire National Football League. The only team that is ranking better than them when it comes to outside corners in terms of fantasy football scoring against that defense is the New York Jets. So when you think of that outside coverage from the Jets secondary, the team that's right up there with them is the Kansas City Chiefs. And this game definitely went the way I thought it would go with those receivers, with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I wasn't too sure about A.J. Brown, but definitely Devontae Smith I felt would have maybe that one or two big plays in the game, which he did. Almost scored a touchdown, but that was pretty much it for him and the majority of that offense. Not much throwing out of Jalen Hurts. So looking at what he was playing against, I thought he did pretty well. Not much production in the air, but definitely had that production on the ground against in the running game, rushing for 2 touchdowns on the day. So with that, they weren't able to throw as much. No Dallas Goedert in this game. Very little production from the tight ends. Pretty much almost no Julio Jones, who's kind of been that slot receiver fill-in for this team. A little bit of Olamide Zaccheaus. But when it comes to this game, it looked like Philadelphia really made sure that they anchored their offense on DeAndre Swift. So whether DeAndre could just run it up the gut or if they could do those bubble screens, it seemed like that kind of style actually worked incredibly well against Kansas City. And if we look into some of these stats that DeAndre Swift actually had last night, it was pretty interesting. Looking at Swift, he ran for about 76 yards and had that one score. And then even in the receiving part of it, I want to say he still did okay. Yeah, did about 30 yards receiving. So in total, he went for over 100 yards on the day. And it felt like it. It felt like whenever the ball was in his hands, he was able to make some big time production on it. Even looking at just the rushing side with this guy, he averaged about 6 yards a carry. And then his combined average on receiving is about 10 yards per catch. So those bubble screens, those really elaborate runs with a really good run blocking, especially from Jason Kelce, that adds up. And DeAndre Swift made the most of that last night. So really cool there. And it's interesting that on the other side of the ball for Philadelphia for playing defense, that this is a team that is usually not the greatest against receiving. And especially when it comes to outside receivers, this team struggles. And if I look at that, I want to say Philadelphia ranks as kind of the lowest. And it is true. Actually, when it comes to outside receivers, they're averaging about 25 points per game outside from those players. And that actually ranks Philadelphia's sixth worst secondary when it comes to that. So Kansas City tried that. They went at him. It looked like their main target was Justin Watson a lot in this game. And he's typically been that guy who they take a few deep shots at throughout the game. And he made really big plays, really big catches, especially when they had that soft zone cover defense towards the end of the game. We definitely saw Watson make one of those catches. And when it wasn't him, there was a little bit of MVS who definitely didn't make that crucial catch at the end of the game. But we had that. We had a little bit of Travis Kelce. And I want to say when it comes to tight end coverage, I don't think Philadelphia is that great either. And if I pull this up and take a look at how Philadelphia covers against the tight end, let's see what they got here. And looking at it, yeah, Philadelphia kind of ranks right around like they do with outside receivers. And they're ranking at about an average of 8 per game, kind of puts them at right around 7th, I want to say. But next week, I think things get a little bit different for Travis Kelsey and the Chiefs. Uh, Even though Philadelphia is 6th, or roughly about maybe like 7th worst, when you change that, you change the script, you go to Las Vegas. Now Las Vegas is kind of hovering around, actually like almost top 10 against the tight end. So this is starting to shape up as a fairly good looking defense. And that's pretty interesting. Another cool point that Kansas City had last night was how well they were able to run, especially against this Philadelphia front, which is one of the best in the entire NFL. But the entire game, Isaiah Pacheco just ran angry, just ran real hard, ran real well, and did really solid in this game against that top-notch defense. So I give him a lot of credit for that. And I think it does get for him, it does get easier next week against the Raiders. So where Kelsey is going to have probably a tougher matchup, I think Pacheco is going to have a much easier matchup. And I think that's the way Kansas City is going to try to attack the Raiders. I don't think they're going to have as much success in the air initially, but I do think if they want to open it up, they will have to have that success through Pacheco, and Pacheco can absolutely do that. So I like that style for how Kansas City is going to attack Las Vegas next week. So definitely be on the lookout for that for fantasy. And let's take a look at actually on the Philly side of things too for the running back. I think this is another team that had a tough sledding against Kansas City, but I do think things actually get a little bit easier next week against Buffalo. I do want to say, though, next week throwing against Buffalo is not going to be easy, just like it was against Kansas City. So if that's the case, they're going to have to do almost an identical game plan like they did this past week, utilizing DeAndre Swift, utilizing Kenneth Gainwell, and really attack them on the ground. Some good amount of Jalen Hurts design plays as well. That's how they're going to do it. And Philadelphia, this is a team that really looks at every starting drive as 1st and 9, right? Because they know if it's X and short, they're going to play the brotherly shove. So that's how they're going to make it happen, right? So if we look at the rushing side of things, Kansas City so Philadelphia just played Kansas City. Kansas City is almost a borderline top 10 against the running back position. Next week, Philadelphia plays against Buffalo. And Buffalo actually is kind of like bottom 10. So this does actually shape up even nicer for DeAndre Swift and those Philadelphia Eagles to really get that run game going. And I think that's definitely what you want to do. If you can take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, and especially on the defensive side of things, make it so Josh Allen can make those mistakes and you can capitalize on it. And then you can put your offense on the field more and really wear and tear that defense of Buffalo. I think that's how Philadelphia is going to get to victory. Is they're going to nickel and dime them. They're going to do the death and taxes kind of strategy with that run game that they have. Just Josh Allen make a mistake, which is totally doable, and then capitalize on that and take your time working your way downfield, because those corners on Buffalo outside are really good as well. So you're not going to be targeting Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown as much. Maybe a little bit of Devontae Smith, maybe try to get A.J. Brown a little bit more rhythm than what he had against the Chiefs, but really they're going to have to force the ground. So I really like that. I think that's a style of play that they're going to play this week against Buffalo, and that's how they're going to get it done. Another thing with Philly is still no Dallas Goedert. We'll see how much of that they want to play in this game. But I would think that they're probably going to go with almost an identical game script against Buffalo that they did against Kansas City. So use that to your knowledge. Use that for fantasy football. Use that for sports betting. I think that's kind of the way this game is going to go. This might be an actual runaway for Philly to execute that game plan. And that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to go on with that. When it comes to the Kansas City side of this now, right? Now they're going up against Vegas. And if Vegas can do what they just did against Miami, an explosive team on offense, and this Kansas City team is getting really choppy. So they get the majority of their production out of Travis Kelce, who had a beautiful goal line route in this game against Philly. And I do see that if they were to do that against the Raiders, I'm pretty sure they could have that success again. And Kelsey has had really good games historically against the Raiders. So you can probably capitalize on that in this game as well, I think. But I think they're going to use more Isaiah Pacheco, and they're going to figure out where their better matchups are in the receiving game, maybe even in the middle of the field. So if Travis Kelsey's doing something, maybe some more Jerick McKinnon, maybe some more Rashee Rice kind of thing. And I think that's how they're going to work their way, try to nickel and dime, make the big plays when they have to, get guys wide open, and try to have somebody do something similar to what Tyreek Hill did last week. Again, you can't have a guy spin on a dime like that. I don't think any of Kansas City receivers can do that, but they can make those plays happen. Maybe even have Patrick Mahomes kind of break free and kind of run unchecked if they're covering everyone else downfield. I think that's something that they're going to bring. Is the Raiders going to play that way on defense, or are they going to change it up? I think they're going to change it up. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think this game has the potential that it could be a little bit lower scoring. I think Kansas City is going to be reeled back. That's a team that's not as explosive as Miami. And my Las Vegas Raiders definitely have their own issues on offense, especially when it comes to Aiden O'Connell second-guessing himself. He has a big arm like Derek Carr, but he does share those traits of Derek Carr of having the doubts, having the second guesses. When you have receivers like Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams, those are huge targets, huge guys you can hit. You got Michael Mayer out there. You got Hunter Renfrow running really nice routes. They need to capitalize on that, but I think they're going to use more ground and pound on a Josh Jacobs. And that Kansas City rush defense, let's take a look at that. I do think that there might be a way that they can kind of go at them. So Kansas City is one of the teams that is a better team against the run. But, ironic. Both Miami and Kansas City are about the same against the running back. So probably even the Raiders kind of run a game plan similar to what they did against Miami against Kansas City. So the main difference there, though, is that Miami had really no tight end. Kansas City has the tight end. So he's a little banged up in this game, but I think Travis Kelce will still be out there, still be able to do his thing. And then you do have Noah Gray, who can do what he does kind of similarly, but a little bit different at it as well. So that's what you got there out of him, and that's how you make it happen. So got everything we got out of this Philadelphia-Kansas City game. Pretty cool there. And so a few fantasy football tips. So when it comes to some of the guys that I'm looking out there to pick up this week, definitely the one guy that shocked me that was out there. I wasn't too keen on the matchup, but Khalil Shakir is definitely a guy to go after. And especially when you're playing a team like the Jets, like they just played, having that guy in the slot is where Josh Allen's going to live. So if they're locking down the receivers outside, hit them in the middle, hit them with Khalil Shakir. That's exactly what the Buffalo Bills did in this matchup against the Jets. So when you come across those matchups, then you can use them. On that, just stash him on the bench, be ready to play him when he is, and at least you have him. So that's a really cool matchup there. Another thing I noticed from the Raiders-Dolphins game is that there's a lot of banged up running backs on the Miami Dolphins. So if you can get him, right now he's owned in about 20% of all leagues. Get Jeff Wilson. I would expect him to get a ton of playing time in this game. And if I'm looking at all of the running backs on Miami, and let's pull up all of them. Let's see how many of them are out there. I want to say this team has about 4 or 5 of them, including Alec Ingold, who's a fullback. But looking at this list, they have 5 running backs that aren't Alec Ingold. Every single one of them, except for one, is listed on the injury report. The only one who isn't is Jeff Wilson Jr. And Jeff Wilson is only rostered in about 20% of all leagues. This is a guy, I actually had him on fantasy last year. He was very serviceable and really did well in the matchups that I needed him to play in. So he can get you a good amount of points, especially if everyone else is banged up. So get him. He's only rostered in about 20% of all ESPN leagues. I think he's a guy that can make a really big difference for your team this week. So a really good guy that you can go after and get. Just want to check the comments here and see if I got anything. Other than that, I kind of want to see if there's anyone else out there for free agents that would kind of make some sense. And there are some interesting guys at quarterback that you can go with this week. So if I'm looking at some things when it comes to the quarterbacks in the projection category, it is looking interesting. So you have some options. You have Tampa Bay, who is not really a good secondary. You have Gardner Minshew running that offense, which is pretty good when it gets going. Sometimes it can get held up. Sometimes Gardner Minshew plays rough, and I get it. But he is playing against the 29th ranked defense against the quarterback. He's available out there in a ton of leagues. Go get him if you need a guy. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a very interesting one, but it is at Denver. So that does concern me. Had a tough game against Pittsburgh. Denver's been playing a real solid defense as of late. I might want to be a little bit cautious on that. But that's kind of about it when you look at the quarterback position. An interesting team that is out there that it hasn't been listed yet, but there is something at quarterback to me that does stand out. They're about middle of the road defensively. And this guy's been out there. He played well in the preseason. I think he's a sneaky steal you can get. He'd be a real cool streamer for especially dailies and just see if this guy fires off and does well in most leagues. And he could be that sneaky quarterback that only you profit off of. And that would be Malik Cunningham. Had some really cool plays against the Texans. To be honest, I think this is the guy they should have gone with since day one. I really don't understand why they didn't. This is a team that a few years ago had Cam Newton on the roster, and Cam Newton played fairly well. So I would think they want a more mobile style quarterback, but then they're stuck with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, who have no mobility whatsoever and can play kind of good at quarterback sometimes, about 1 out of every 3 games. So that's not good enough in today's NFL. I think Malik Cunningham would be a very sneaky pick. The Giants did play well this past week against Sam Howell, who is kind of that kind of run and gun kind of style quarterback, especially a guy who's got to be running as hard as he is without a good offensive line whatsoever. So I think he's a sneaky guy out there. I mean, I guess if you are a Bengals owner and you have certain guys, you might have to play Jake Browning for the foreseeable future with Joe Burrow's hand injury. So that's definitely a thing. We also have Tim Boyle out there against the Miami defense. And Miami's secondary is not – it is really good. But if you have guys who can run – if you have really good wideouts, really fast wideouts, and a solid quarterback, I think this is a defense that can definitely be had. The biggest thing with Jalen Ramsey is if you have a receiver that's just faster than him, he just flat out cannot keep up. And that's the way to attack him. Does the Jets have that? They do have some speedier receivers. They have Garrett Wilson. They have that other young receiver that's opposite Garrett Wilson. I'm blanking on the guy's name right now. But that might even be a sneaky pickup too. So that could be a thing. Tim Boyle and maybe that receiver from the Jets. If you got to make something happen, it's late in the season. If you're in a big, deeper league, maybe you attack that. So give that a shot. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. And I think that might be all right. So, actually a huge one. We don't know the full extent of the Mark Andrews injury, but it does look like it is significant. Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely is a guy that has done well in the past. He has filled in for Mark Andrews, has had huge games in the past as well. Even with Tyler Huntley at quarterback, they made things happen. So I think that guy might be your overall number one target to pick up in free agency on the waiver wires. So Isaiah Likely's out there. Get him, add him to your roster. That's a huge play, and especially a good hedge if you ever come across the Lamar Jackson owner. So I really like Isaiah Likely this week. Chargers obviously are not a good secondary. They do rank poorly against the tight end as well. So Likely is likely to get you a good amount of points. That's no debate. Get that guy. So got those positions covered. And finally, some things at the defense. So if you are looking to start a defense, there aren't too many defenses out there. But I think one to me that's really starting to stand out that actually plays against a team that I think is getting kind of banged up. Looks like their running back and their starting tight end are both going to be probably out this week. And they actually play 2 days from now on Thanksgiving. And that is the Green Bay Packers. And I wish my boy DJ Triggs would be here to defend it or what his input would be. But looking at this, the Detroit Lions are only rostered in a little over half of all fantasy leagues on ESPN, a little over 60%. But with that, I think this is a great matchup. They just scored 21 points last week against the Chicago Bears, and now they're playing Green Bay. And Green Bay is about middle of the road, but again, Jordan Love can kind of be riled up. And then no Aaron Jones, no Luke Musgraves. Those are two of his favorite targets to work with. And the thing is, too, the last time Detroit played Green Bay, I didn't feel like Detroit put their best foot forward, but it was still enough to win that game. So I think this is a defense that could play even better. I think this game could actually be just a crazy runaway for the Detroit Lions. Plus, playing on Thanksgiving, they love to play on Thanksgiving. It just fits with the culture. It's on brand. I think this is exactly what Detroit Lions, especially getting beat up with Matt Stafford against the Aaron Rodgers teams of the past. I think this is something they want to make up for. And it would be pretty significant for Jared Goff as well, who's kind of newer to Detroit's landscape. But I love them in this matchup, and I think that would be a sneaky good defense. So if you can get the Detroit Lions, get them. I think that's probably your best bet at a waiver wire pickup, and make something out of that. So I think that's everything we got for the week. Kickers, I'll let you guys figure that out. But that's pretty much everyone. So I like what we got here. I like what we got. I do miss my guy, DJ Triggs. So he'll be back with us next week. And you can see us here. Next week, every Monday and Tuesday. We'll be here 7 o'clock Central. And that is on Facebook, YouTube, and X every week, twice a week, 7 o'clock, Monday and Tuesday. There you go. That's us. And other than that, we'll have content coming out the rest of this week as well. So I'll be diving deep into these games, giving you some more inside knowledge on the stats and some good stuff like that. And hopefully DJ Triggs, our boy, is feeling better, and he can give you some really cool fantasy surprises that you were a little bit unaware of on Saturday. So cool to point those out, see what we got here, and we'll see you next time. So for that, I'm Steve Metrics, and that's No Debate.